Haha, that looks really cute.
Oh, I love it!
Welcome to the Photography Podcast with your host, Mike Cassidy.
Hey, how are you, everybody? My name is Mike Cassidy, and I'm a boudoir photographer from New Jersey, and this is my show. What I do is talk with people who are just starting out on their photography voyages, as well as established pros, to learn about the hurdles they've had to overcome to get their businesses going. I'm looking to bring you personal stories which will help you connect to the fact that you're not alone in your struggles. Along the way, we'll probably have a few laughs, but the goal is to get you some actionable advice to help your business grow. So stay tuned. You never know what you may learn. Oh, hello. My name is Michael, and I am your neighbor. I need some help. I am, jacked up on cinnamon Coke, and the worst part about it is I'm not really that big of a soda drinker, but they got me sucked in with this one, and I have a feeling my problem isn't going to go away till all these cans I bought in this 12-pack go away, so if I seem a little worked up, it's from all that caffeine. Anyway, moving on. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening to the show. Another month, another episode, and I'm getting back into full swing here. Take a little bit of a break after Christmas. My business winds down a little bit. I think people are a little too not inquiring so much after Christmas, and it takes till mid-January or so till things start to perk back up, and now my inquiries are in full spring. People seem to pop up out of the woodwork, getting a few people reaching out to me each and every day. And then one thing you have to get skilled at is this process of guiding people through the booking process. And I think this is something that with time and experience and some training and sales becomes easier, but you're never going to win them all. And after all, when people, why are they choosing you? What information do they really have to make that decision? You always have to talk to these people when possible, although not everybody wants to get on the phone these days. You kind of do what you can. I'm a big fan of video emails. I like getting people on the phone. You have to be a calm and reassuring force. And one thing about being a photographer, you have to be prepared to answer a lot of questions, especially in boudoir, and sometimes the same questions over and over and over, but you still have to sound as enthusiastic the first time as the 100th time that you answer that question. And you have to understand the process. People are often spending a lot of money with you, so it gets very involved. There's a lot of back and forth between customers, and people aren't always going to make a decision about choosing you on the spot, always. And you don't win them all. It's an odd thing, too, and it's difficult to figure out, and some people book no questions asked. They send you a note, I want to sign up today. You send them the booking, and they're done. Other people, they ask lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. And, they may go through this process, which could take days or sometimes even weeks. And you get to that point where they're like, yes, I want to book with you. And you get all their stuff ready and you send it over to them and there's no response. And, you get this email that says, thanks, but no thanks. We changed our mind. You never know sometimes. But what you can do is be prepared and do the best that you can with each and every person to sort of push those that you may have lost in your direction. And sometimes that takes a little bit of skill and ability to talk about yourself and your business. And most important things, is to be upfront with these people, fully disclose any costs. People don't like surprises. And I can use one example just recently where I was contacted by a woman who wanted to come in with her husband, and really all she wanted was a couple of wall prints for over a bed, like wall canvases, 3 big photos. And this took a couple of phone calls, lots of emails, going back and forth, and I can see that the bottom line is she wanted to know what all of this cost, and I cannot do a session, for just 3 digital pictures to give them to go buy wall art somewhere else. I'm getting that sale. That's my business. And wall art is expensive, and I'm expensive. And so this is an example of one where it didn't go my way because she was planning on just buying a few digital photos, and that really wasn't something that I wanted to do because it's just not worth my time to do that. So even though you don't win them all, you still have to have this process. There's no point in leading somebody on and booking them and then telling them some exorbitant amount of money after the fact, because it doesn't sit well with people. And you have to, even though you don't like to hear those no's, it's better to get that out of the way earlier than to book somebody in and take their money and have them find out later that it's not going to go exactly as they planned. And do a little sales work. There's lots of systems out there, and some of them are useful, some of them are useless. But generally, it's a system about building rapport with people, finding out why they're coming to you, discussing budgets. It's kind of weird to talk budget with somebody you may or may not know, but that's something you got to get out there, and then walking them through the decision-making process. You're not going to win all these battles, but you have to be skilled at moving people through this process and winning those 50-50 shots, and those are the people you need to get into your camp, and you need to get those bookings in. And that's how the system goes. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you always have to be asking yourself when you're with somebody, what's the next step? It takes a long time to learn, and it takes a while to be comfortable with, and especially when dealing with large amounts of money with people, it takes some practice. Other than that, I've been updating my boudoir galleries. I have a little bit of break after Christmas, so I'm putting some new photos up there I got during the Christmas season. And I'm also starting on updating my beach website, because now's the time to do it in winter, updating that and getting that ready for the upcoming beach photography season this spring. But enough about me. I have a good guest today, Angela Bagley, After Dark Boudoir. Had a great talk with Angie for about an hour, and it's really good to hear for people who are thinking about getting involved in boudoir, and if they're trying to juggle their boudoir career with a full-time job. The one thing about photography is it is a great part-time job because you can schedule around your work schedule, you can do it as time allows, and I guess the expectation for a lot of people is to build that up, and eventually they can make the leap. So this is a great talk with her today about that process and how that can be a little bit stressful for people, and it's a good thing to listen to. So I'm going to cut over to the interview, and this is my conversation with Angela. Enjoy. Okay, and you are on. You are live.
Oh, man.
This is what it's all about. And
Finally
so
here.
I am with Angie Bagley today, After Dark Boudoir. And Angie, just take a moment to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you are doing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie. I am a boudoir photographer in Monroe, North Carolina, which is just about 30 minutes outside of Charlotte. So I've been doing boudoir for about 8-9 years, and I actually got into it because of my full-time job, which is nursing. I had some nurses that knew I did some photography of kids and things, and they asked if I would do it. I was like, well, let's have fun. Let's see what we can do. And that's where it kind of started. Yeah.
The business. Yeah. And we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that, because it's interesting. And it's interesting, I think, to a lot of people, how people get their start and what sort of the genesis to get that sort of gets them, or the inspiration that gets them started and doing what they're doing. And people sort of have their own interesting stories and their unique stories that do that. But we were talking about, before we hit the record button, a few minutes about this whole Instagram debacle. So I was just telling her that, again, I've started getting notifications on my own that my account is about to be banned, or for, posting boudoir photos on my Instagram. And it's not a person. I think it's just their AI that is now going through and targeting photos that look like certain things, and you're sending people threatening notices, and I've at least for 6-8 months, I've noticed pretty much every Boudoir tag is blocked and banned, and when you click on it, it says these photos are all hidden. So Boudoir photography is under attack on Instagram, which is not unusual. They did the same thing like on Pinterest. So, and you were mentioning to me that trying to grow your business on Instagram, and it's a struggle to do that, I think, these days. So when did you start? When did you turn your account public, and what have you noticed since you've done that as far as Instagram?
It was probably about 8 weeks ago.
Oh, so pretty recently.
Yeah, very recently. I had grown as far as I felt like I could, because people don't, Boudoir is not something that people just say, oh, guess what I did yesterday. That's you tell your closest 1 or 2 friends that you went and had a session, but it's not something you just go out and tell everybody. So even though I had a good following and I had a lot of support, I just felt like maybe I was missing out on a little something as far as my growth rate. And I really haven't noticed, my male to female ratio has not been anything drastic like I was thinking it would be.
You think it would have been a bunch of guys just suddenly trying to look at the pictures.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not been near as much as I thought. And the other reason that I didn't go public for the longest time was I had kids in high school at that time. And a lot of their friends follow me, don't necessarily follow my Boudoir, but they knew
from the other photography business.
Yeah, and I did have some that tried to follow when it was still private, so I was just very cautious
about. Yeah, and that's an interesting trade-off, like you said, because you got to protect, but at the same time, it could be a vehicle for promotion. And Instagram is a weird bird because it's global. So I don't know if it's necessarily a super great tool for targeting local business, because there's no way just to post to reach, you can put tags, a hashtag, but if people are looking for that. So yeah, I guess it's to get your work out there. It's a useful tool, but I think, and I have no intimate knowledge of this, but I think Instagram or Facebook is doing to Instagram only what they did to the Facebook page, is that they're just taking that native reach and making it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I even noticed once in a while I'll do like a little Instagram live when I'm at my building and doing a session or something, and before you go on, it even says in there, we will show some of your followers that you're going live. So I think they're really limiting that reach just to fewer and fewer people when you post everything. And of course, it's a business, so they want you to pay money, to promote your photo. So I don't know the long-term viability of Instagram as far as a promotion. I think its best days are behind it, but still it's there, and it's a billion people that use it. So it's still a useful thing to use to get your pictures out there, and you will get noticed. And I say you have some good comments and you have some good likes on your Instagram page. So I think it's just one of those things where it takes time and persistence and to keep posting, and slowly you get that following, and you build some interaction through Instagram. Have you got any leads through Instagram? Or you're getting people contacting you through there?
I actually have, and it's kind of been a little bit of a surprise, because some of them that I've reached have not been super local. I'll travel to do some sessions, depending on where they're located and how many people they can bring me. And I've reached more towards like the Raleigh area, surprisingly.
So you have had some success. So it's worth it in your case to keep going on there and posting the photos. And I guess the key there is finding relative hashtags. And to me, I know when I go on Instagram, I don't search anything by hashtags. It's kind of just whatever shows up in my feed.
Exactly.
So I guess if people happen to be searching for that, they'll pick up on that. But I always found, something that I started to do was use hashtags that had nothing to do with whatever
With
the picture.
Boudoir.
Yeah, and it was just anything but, because I already know what my pictures are. You're trying to get people maybe looking at something else, like wedding. I would use like
Right.
New Jersey wedding or New Jersey bride, things not related, and somehow get in there and someone may see you and go, oh, what's this about? And pick up somebody that may have not otherwise has seen your work. And I don't try to do too. Mine is more fun than anything else. I don't necessarily use it as a big means of promotion. I got a lot of people, I think, on my Instagram, but it's not late. It's like at the start of it, and things have really slowed down on there. Mm-hmm. I don't like pick up tons and tons of people anymore. I used to, but people enjoy seeing it. I definitely have people once in a while that say, "Oh, I came across you on Instagram," and then they'll send me a message as well. But not that much. I think still Google is my main way that people find me. You use Facebook at all? Are you still pursuing a Facebook page a little bit?
I do, just because I actually have a good clientele of people around my age, even older also. So I think my oldest client was maybe 56, 57.
You're asking your people how old they are? See, I never do that because I feel that's going to be so rude I don't want to make it seem like I'm like...
I don't ask. It just kind of comes... Yeah, it just kind of comes up in conversation. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about I'll talk about my age. I'll tell them, I'm not the young 20-year-old anymore either. So we can relate on that as far as the session goes. But I get a lot of the older, the more mature clientele off of Facebook.
Right. And they're on there. And I wonder that too. Yeah. That the younger people have sort of abandoned that as their main platform. And it's just people now, like you said, probably 30s and up, 40s and up that are on Facebook. I still spend a fortune on advertising on Facebook, mostly again for brides and for engagement people, and I do get a lot of clicks from there when I bombard them with ads, but I don't think you're right. Yeah, and then I think about it, I don't think it's a lot of young, like brides in their early 20s or mid 20s that are on. Yeah,
and it's surprising because I do feel like women around my age they get to a point where they're like, okay, I'm not going to get any younger. I'm not going to necessarily get any better looking. As far as a physical standpoint, they have a little bit more expendable income because maybe their kids are out of college. I can do something for myself. So I've actually had a lot of women that I actually graduated high school with that have contacted me. They found out through Facebook that I was doing it, and they've contacted me. So it's not been bad at all.
Yeah, and there are some photographers who have built really strong communities on Facebook through their pages. That was never a main focus of my efforts again, because I saw how they were just limiting your reach, and you would write a post and it would say 4 people have seen this post, and you're like, why am I spending all this time? There's so many things now but some people have invested in that and they built that, and people have their own message groups and communities and of women, women only groups on there and boudoir groups. And I think if you put the energy in it, it still can be a return, because you're right. I think a lot of the people on Facebook now in terms of women are family, with the middle-aged family women who talk to other family members, and you can infiltrate that group. I think you could still get something from that. But what we're going to do, we're going to do something. We're going to go back in time, Angie. We're going back. And when you hear this sound, it means we're going back in time.
Okay.
So we're going back. And what I want to know is, what was the germ of the idea, or what was it that got you started in photography? And not necessarily as a business, but was there something that sort of sparked your interest in it?
Well, my husband and I put me through nursing school, and one of the hardest 2 years of my life. And after I graduated, I decided I was going to buy myself a good manual camera, because I just have always loved pictures, and I started noticing the more that my kids got their pictures professionally made, that I wasn't super happy with it. So I thought, well, I'm going to get me a good camera and just play. And I was really surprised at what I was able to get just off of the little knowledge that I had reading the manual and looking at some videos and things. I used to watch PhotoBiz had a series, where you could just stream videos, and I would just watch all kinds of videos, and it kind of got out there that I was, doing some really cool pictures when I would show people, and that's kind of where it was born. And then the boudoir part of it, I was a labor and delivery nurse. I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 8 years. We see everything, and not always,
that's for sure.
Not always at the best
time.
Exactly. What I usually tell my clients is I've seen all of it and had my fingers in half of it. So there's it's just something about being a woman and seeing other women in that kind of vulnerable state where they're not feeling the best about themselves. Right. I had another nurse ask me about doing a session for her with the boudoir, and I did it, and I loved it. And it just got out there between us and the other nurses in the hospital, and I got this,
underground sort of buzz going at work.
I did, and I really didn't bring it out, didn't put it out there more publicly that I did it until my kids got like high school age. Because I just didn't want that to be, I know what your mom does.
And that's a concern. That's an understanding. And I'm going to back you up even for a little bit there. Now, when you first started, who were you photographing at first? Was it students?
Yep.
Was it school?
My kids and their friends. And
how did that even come about, though? What was the first? Do you remember the first time you did that? The first person that you photographed?
I don't even. I know that as far as it getting more public, my son was playing football. And I asked the coach if I could walk up and down the sidelines and take pictures of some of the kids, while they were playing. So I got, some good action shots. And I did it, honestly, for my son and his friends.
Right.
Well, then I started having the parents ask me, can I get those pictures that you took of my son? And can I get the pictures that I took of your son? So every year, at the end of the year, that would be a big thing. I would go through and pick all the pictures I had out of, this child, and I would burn them to a disc and sell the disc. And that was the start. Yeah, that's kind of
unintentional. Again, sort of more of circumstance. And then you were like, maybe there's something more to this.
Yeah.
Now, what point, or do you remember where, or was there a time when you said, maybe there is a business part of this, and then you actively started to turn it into something else?
It was about that time. It was about the time that my daughter was a cheerleader, and my son was a football player. And after I, took pictures of them and the parents started asking me, I was like, maybe I need to start. I started with a Facebook page. I need to start a little Facebook page and just see what I can get. And then I got asked to do the cheer pictures for the girls at school.
And how bad were they at first? How confident were you in this work? Were you aware that you were not good, or were you right away thinking, wow, there's really
okay, so compared to what I was paying for previously, like the pictures that a local photographer was actually doing for the sports, I thought I was pretty comparable, if not better. And, he's out here doing a lot more than I was. So I was like, I think I'm going to try this. I think I'm going to just see where it goes. And it continued to grow. And then I found a photographer that I really liked his style, and I hooked up with him, and I still do seniors, and we did weddings, but we got out of that because we both have full-time jobs. But we still, I still shoot with him very frequently, but I wanted something for myself, and that's where the boudoir
And that's separated. Is
Yep.
pixel frames the part
Yes.
that you share with him?
Yep.
And with and portraits, I guess, because I was looking at those, and they're really good. And see, now, that's really great work. I think those are really great work with seniors in there. And I think you guys, I can't tell if they really look all very similar. I can't tell who does what kind of. I don't know if you're splitting those up between is it Todd and yourself?
Yep. And Todd is he's a very he likes editing. I like to edit, but I don't get as into it as he does. So he edits most everything. I shoot a lot of what you see on the pixel frames, but he likes to edit and play.
And how did you grow that business? Was that started already when you joined it, or was that an idea that the two of you kind of came up with?
He had started pixel frames, and his kids are right at the same ages as mine, and we're in the same community. So honestly, here again, Facebook, I reached out to him. Yeah, I was kind of like Facebook stalking him. And I was just kind of like, hey, I'd love to learn more about off-camera flash, off-camera lighting, because I had never, all I did was natural light and some reflectors. And I wanted to learn more about that. And he was really good at off-camera lighting. And it just kind of grew more with me, I think partly because of the senior girls. And, Todd always said, he didn't really like being just him and a senior girl, just the awkwardness that could create.
Right.
So
in this day and age, unfortunately, that's something you have to consider.
Exactly. Yeah. And most of them do bring their mom, but not everybody. So it's just kind of grown, my kids' friends and his kids' friends. It's just continued to grow. And now we've got a pretty good name. And I think we have a pretty strong following around here. Anyway, like anything, it's growing outside your little tiny area.
Right. It keeps going. It's a competitive business, but I think it could be a good business. I think where I am in the Northeast in New Jersey, it's not really the same as it is in other parts of the country, or at least that I'm not aware of. It's not like a big thing here. I just don't think it is. But senior photography, I think in the rest of the country has changed so much. Like in my day and age, you'd go down to the auditorium, you'd sit on the stage and back of something and some guy and this giant flash. And that was really all there was to it. And flash forward, now it's a super involved, lengthy process with makeup artists and locations and staff and lighting. And it has evolved into this big deal. And I think the results are great. And for the photographers, it's great because they can charge a heck of a lot more. But do you think this has gone too far, or do you think how it is now is something how it always should have been? Or how do you see, is it excessive, or is it something that you think is good for these girls and the guys coming in?
I mean, I definitely think they're still doing the auditorium photos, but people aren't happy with them. And instead
they have an option to go out and get something else.
Right.
I see.
And something that's a little more personalized to them. The other thing is, you have to buy this package, even though you may only want this one picture. You've got to buy this whole, package of pictures. So I think that is an option that the parents like. And the kids just like to have a good picture of themselves that they feel like represents themselves a little bit better than, standing in this auditorium with this fake backdrop.
Right. Especially what's going on in magazines and social media now.
Right.
Everyone wants to be glammed and everyone wants these super sharp type of photos on there.
Right.
So it's a production. And I've talked to some other portrait photographers, and I don't do too much of that. Once in a while, a beach session I'll do for somebody. And the one thing I always struggle with, And I would be interested to get your feedback here, especially with the women or the young women or the girls, as far as keeping things in line with, all right, this is a school picture. These are our boundaries. And I'm sure they're always wanted to push it a little bit. Do you run into that a lot, or keeping things in line as far as not going too far with these women or the young women?
I mean, you want them to have the experience that they want, and most of them, honestly, most of them around here don't push that envelope too much. I do a lot of the posing, just because here again, I'm female, and most of our senior clientele is females. And I do most of the posing, and I'll try to make them look more like the young adult that they are, instead of, a little 5-year-old. But we really haven't had very much pushback on that.
Going too far, too sexually suggestive or anything, and women showing up in outfits that are inappropriate or something. You don't have to deal with that too much.
No, and usually we'll have them bring, 3 or 4 outfits, and we will kind of pick and choose and say, for the look that we're going for, we feel like this would be the best. And because they see the work that we're producing and putting out there on Instagram, they trust us.
They know your style. They know what they're getting themselves into, so they're not straying too far from that, from what they see on there. No, it's good. The guys look good. The girls look good. Everything is really good work on there. I'm flipping through some of the pictures on that website now. So that was sort of the genesis. And then, do you remember, again, the first time you did one of your boudoir sessions? Was that for someone from the hospital? Yep. And what was that a little bit like? Was it a train wreck? What was going on during that first? Oh, you had some experience, though, I guess, because you've been doing some portrait photography at that point.
Well, okay, so when I first started out, I didn't have a studio. I didn't have anywhere that I used, so I went to her house. And I very quickly learned that I don't really like doing it.
It's hard.
It's
you don't
really
know what
hard.
You're walking into. Yeah.
You have no idea what your lighting is. There's a stack of clothes over here. There's a dog running through over here. There's, and you're always, I felt like we were constantly moving things
to get them out
of the picture. And, so I didn't feel like it was a disaster, but I felt like it took way longer than I would have liked. The nurse that I took the photographs of, her husband is a police officer. So, we had talked when we were working about we need some handcuffs and we need a shirt and, all that stuff. And it worked out great, but it was a lot of work. And it was a lot of trying to place myself and place her where the lighting was the best. Because I was not at that time using off-camera flash.
You still going to people's homes, or you opt not to now because of that?
Yeah, I don't. I have one client that I'm talking to right now about possibly doing it. But I told her, I said, okay, I need you to go through your house at, 10, 12, and 2. And just send me some pictures of your different...
Clean everything up, make sure it's well lit, so you don't want to walk into a tough situation there. It's exactly...
And you can do the off-camera light, but, I mean, it's so much to have to take...
Dragging everything around.
Yeah, it's not...
It gets in the way. Yeah, it's very difficult, and I don't think a lot of people realizing that going into an unknown environment... And it really can throw you off if the walls are black or gray and there's one window and everything is dark, and it really can make it not work out the way that that you want it to. So that's extremely difficult. And I don't know how. I know there are plenty of people go and do boudoir in people's homes, and that's a rough business to go and do that.
Yeah.
And so how did that work out at the end when you got the pictures from her and started editing everything?
Well, she was super happy with them. I think you were your own worst critic. Of course, I was happy. I can't say that I wasn't, but I knew that, I wanted to improve. And I've gotten better at my posing. That's an issue, especially, for people who have had children or have lost some extra weight or have gained some extra weight, just learning more about posing and stuff. But I really did like doing it, and she enjoyed it. She ordered a book, and he was super surprised. So that I think after the first session, I probably got 2 or 3 sessions. And then nurses can be a little crazy. So I've had groups of like 4, and I had one group that we rented a hotel room in downtown Charlotte. And I was like, okay, we'll just, when I'm shooting with one, the others can change. But they're great. It's so much fun because they're like, oh girl, yeah, stick it out. Oh yeah, that looks so good. They're like your own little personal cheering squad. But
yeah, it is. It's interesting. And I think, when was the first time you realized that doing that kind of work can have an impact on women? Like, I'm sure you don't get that same thing when you're photographing, high school portraits. And did you really sit back and say, wow, this can really be an influence on these women's lives, and realize there may have been a little bit more to being a boudoir photographer?
Well, and it's kind of funny that you say that, because that's one of the things, because society is, there's so much about perfection and, looking a certain way. I love to have a girl look at the back of my camera, not even an edited photo, just the back of my camera. And she's like, oh, that's me? Yeah, it's you. And this is what people see. You just don't see it because you've, skewed how you look at yourself. So that's so exciting for me to have somebody who can look at their photo and actually feel good about how they looked in that moment. And I caught it.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, and it's an unexpected feeling. I think for people who first start out, they don't realize, and once you get into it, and you could see the smiles on people's faces, or when they're done, they're walking on air when they're leaving, and you're like, and you're going along thinking, what did I do? What really just happened? But to them, it's interesting how you're right. People do, and I don't quite understand that, being a guy, but women do not see themselves in the same way, I think, on the inside as the outside.
Right.
And it's a very powerful thing to turn that around and show somebody. And you're right. Oh my God, I can't believe that. I can do
that. I look like that. Yeah. Especially high school, the high school ages. I love working with them too, because that is such a social, time in their life, and a time where they're pretty critical. Of course, then you get into weddings and things like that. But something about that high school age, they're so socially, everything is just magnified. All the social media stuff and the Snapchat and everything else. So for a high schooler to look at a camera, and very rarely will we have somebody that goes, I don't like that. They're usually very surprised and very happy with what they see. And I love to get that same reaction out of a woman with the boudoir, because they are so, most of them come in and they're petrified. They're like, oh my gosh. So I always start them out in the most clothes, and I'm like, let's just get comfortable with each other. And then a lot of times afterwards, and they see their gallery, they're like, oh, I should have, I should have worn something a little bit skimpier, or I should have this. And so I've actually gotten some repeat clients for that very reason, because they got comfortable enough. And
do that. Yeah. And a lot of women, you're right. And it's a difficult thing to unless you're in this business, to know that you see the fear in somebody's eye. And maybe it's not fear, the anxiety in somebody's eyes because they don't. And it's not something that people do every day. And you're right. And this is, you brought up something a few moments ago about when you're first starting to work with these people, sort of easing them into the photos and not flipping on some lights and saying, take it off, here we go. So talk a little bit about your process when someone say, I just first come in to do photos with you and I'm nervous. How do you start off your clients and sort of how do you lead them into starting that photo session?
So I always tell them when I'm texting or talking or whatever, I'm like, we're going to start out in the most clothing you bring, as far as, a lot of times I'll have, like, my recommendation is to bring one new lingerie outfit that their significant other has not seen them in. But then I'm like, bring one of his shirts. If he likes to, I've had one of the girls that her husband rides BMX, and I'm like, bring some of his ride gear, but I always start them out in the most clothing that they bring, and just getting them in front of the camera and talking to them a little bit about the posing and talking to them a little bit about, facial expressions and stuff. And then I always show them some of those first pictures. So that builds
put them at ease a little bit.
Yeah, that builds their confidence, and we'll shoot, maybe 10, 15 minutes in that just to get them broke in. And then usually by the time you're going to something else, they're a lot more comfortable and they're more trusting. And I think that's part of it. And I'm super talkative. I'm super interactive, and they start to feel like, okay, she's just a normal. And
by the end of it, you can't get them to keep their clothes on.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, like I said, a lot of them have said, I wish I had brought this. I wish I had done this. So, repeat clients.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean, and I run into that often as well, where people come in and they really in the back of their minds they're thinking, I do want to get handcuffed, and I do want to do this, and I do want to do something topless, but they're not going to bring it up at first. They're very uneasy, and then they start to, wow, this really is a lot of fun, and then suddenly these things, and they're like, oh, I meant to bring this, and oh, I meant to bring that. Yeah. So I guess that is a good avenue to get them to come back and do another session.
Absolutely.
So after you photographed every single nurse in the hospital, what happened from that point? How did you start growing that business, or who was coming to you at that point?
I still have a good nurse following.
You still have more to go? You haven't gotten everybody yet?
I still have a good following. And the word gets around in the hospital, and I'm
go-to
that
person.
Nurse.
Like, so in the break room, people are coming to say, like, Angie, can I talk to you for a minute?
Yeah.
Anniversary is coming up.
Yes, I get that a lot. But it just has continued to grow. I mean, I don't even know. Like, here's the problem that I'm having. Because I am a full-time nurse, and I love that part of my life, I feel like I'm at a constant struggle with spending time with the photography and spending time with my family and spending time in nursing. So that's the biggest problem that I'm having right now, is just figuring out how to balance it but still grow. The Boudoir, it's definitely something that I'm struggling, especially right now because all the kids are sick. I'm in pediatrics now. I've stepped out of labor and delivery, and I'm in pediatrics, and now's the sick time. But now's also the time where a lot
Christmas
of women...
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a struggle, and I would love to do some of the bridal fairs. There's a lot of bridal fairs in the spring.
Right, bridal shows, right.
I'd love to do that to market myself more for the Boudoir, and I'll block out the weekends, and I've got a couple that I'm looking at doing, but it's just, like everybody else, everybody's busy. Everybody's got things that they want to do and have to do. And it's just, I really have. I'm still trying to learn how to
and that's a big thing because you only have so much time.
Right.
And then it comes down to everything is super important. Nothing is important, and dividing that time and making the most use of it. And there are a lot of people who do photography and work full time and on their days off, and they're, just filling those hours, and it becomes that struggle. Your boy, this is really good, and I also enjoy my job. It is a struggle.
Yeah.
And then you're right, growing your business is hard because you want more extra time to go out and promote and do these events. And it's something that a lot of people deal with, and they don't exactly know what to do. And I think ultimately, though, these things have a way of working themselves out in the long term.
Right.
And I think you should go do still these bridal events, take the day off and just to try it. I mean, up here, I've never had success doing that. Again, this is the Northeast, but that was not my thing. But I know plenty of people who do go and do those, and they meet lots of brides, and they get a lot of work from that. So I think it's worth trying out.
Yeah, you can't say it if you don't try it. So that's I'm going to try, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, the other thing is, getting the clientele who do allow you to post.
Getting samples or finding people who, and I wonder too, if that is regional in the United States as far as that goes. I don't struggle with that.
Yeah.
I have no issues with that here. And for the most part, unless I have somebody who's a teacher or somebody maybe with a job that really can't have photos like that being used, afterward, I may say someone, oh, this photo is really cute. You mind if I use that? And they're like, okay, and if I have a teacher, I generally don't ask them. But see, it has changed so much. And I've told this story before where 8, 9, 10 years ago it was such a secret. You couldn't tell anybody they were here. And now I have women, in my building taking Instagram photos of themselves in the middle of doing like a session and posting it online. And I don't think the idea of seeing a woman in like lingerie is as shocking and earth-shattering as it was 10, 12 years ago, and people will do that. Right. And I always tell people who ask, sometimes asking, you just don't know because you don't ask. And when you're finished, oh, this photo is really cute, and you mind if we share it? And I think you'll find that you'll get more yeses than people will say. And if they say no, that's okay.
Right.
Then and then you sort of move on with. But I've certainly had people who tell me I could use their photos when I never thought they would have. People who were psychiatrists and doctors who have told me they could use their pictures. So I think the first thing is ask. And, just sort of take it from there. But I don't know if that area where you are too, maybe a little bit more conservative, or the idea of what you do isn't as mainstream maybe as it is here.
Right. It is very conservative area. And I have had good response, with most of them letting, like I've shot 2 models. That I said it was
hired just for that purpose.
It was when I got my studio, and I wanted somebody that would come in and I could spend as much time as I wanted.
Practice. It's good for practice too.
Well, especially with the studio, just the lighting throughout the day and different things. But everybody else that's on my Instagram and Facebook, they're all clients. So. It's not been as hard as I thought. And a lot of times, when I'll show them the pictures, they are surprised, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can post that." I did have a couple of women, because I went back through every single photo and contacted the ones that I had when I was private. And I asked them, I'm going to go public. How do you feel about me posting, leaving your photos up? And I did have 3 ladies that said, no, I really don't want them on a public site. And I respect that totally. I hated it because, you
feel like you're losing
really
something that you really like.
Yeah. But, definitely something that I respected and took care of.
Yeah, and as you're moving on, as you keep doing more, I think you'll really, looking back at it, I'm so bad at now at updating my samples. I have so many that I never even, I just don't get around, because you're always moving forward, next session. Looking back, I have folders full that I can upload, and I just don't even get to to do it sometimes, but I guess you're always looking for fresh material. And I think that will come as a factor of you doing more and more people. You'll have more and more samples. And then I created just sort of like an automated email that goes out and it says, hey, really enjoyed photo. I'd love to share. What do you think are your thoughts? Maybe we can use this picture or this picture. And it just kind of goes out to these people. And then most of the time, like I said, yeah, sure, you can use this. And I'll say, well, pick a photo or two that you like, and they'll pick something. And I kind of save them. And over time, I built up a lot of photos. And I used to do models too. I used to do exactly for practicing,
right?
Because people would, I'd see these poses and that people would want to do, and I'm like, I've never done that before, and I would hire somebody, and it's great to do because you're not in a rush. There's not the same pressure. You can try out new poses to get the right angles and make sure they look the way they do, and not only that, you can get to use these pictures wherever you want to.
Right.
And I think I do much fewer now. I used to try to do 2 or 3 a year, and now I'm down to lucky I do 1 or 2 model sessions a year. But for sites like Model Mayhem, or you can post on your Facebook page, people to volunteer to come in, or if you're working on an email list, I just did that. Unfortunately, I ran out of time to do it, but say, hey, I'm doing a sample session, come on in, but let them know that I'm going to be using these photos publicly. So if you have all the email addresses of your previous clients and just blast something, you'll get people, 1 or 2, that will say they'll come in just to do a sample session. So there are ways really to start to build that. And I think it is important to keep that material fresh and new photos, because people, they notice. They notice when you constantly have new things on there. And then before you know it, like I said, you have so many photos that you can't keep uploading them, and you wind up with a backlog of them. And one thing I noticed that I'm not a big fan of is like the anonymous sample photos. You'll see like cut the women's heads off, and they'll show like the body part of it. And I was never a big fan of that. But, one angle you can try too is making them anonymous, or some women will just use, you can use, this part of me or this part of me. If there was a photo of legs or something, they say you can tell them, oh, this is anonymous and you can't identify them, and they'll be more, accepting to using a photo where they're not identifiable in there. But I think the thing is not to take it personally, or not to take it if someone says no, they don't want you to, because you'll get this really great photo and you're like, oh my God, I'd love to share that. And the woman's like, yeah, no, sorry, you can't use that.
Yeah. And I mean, I would be the same way. Like I've got some photos on there of myself, and before I went public, I had to think about it. I was like, do I want that out there? So no, I totally respect it. And I think that's, you just have to do that.
You have to. Yeah. It's and it's a struggle and some women go to their friends at first, they're rounding up all their girlfriends, and then guess what, Debbie, you're my victim today. And you start with your friends to do that. But after a while, you're going to run out of friends, and not all your friends are going to want to do that either. And then it comes down to money. If you can spend the money, to invest in the models to get the pictures, you're guaranteed somebody, that you'll be able to use their photos. And then once a quarter or twice a year, hire a model, $200, $300. And
I haven't even hired a model. I just, it was a Facebook, one of the, Charlotte models or something on Facebook. Yeah. And I just said, hey, model, call. Time for print, and actually, got 2 really good ones, 2 really good models that I loved working with. And, I probably honestly will reach out to them again at some point.
Right. Why not?
They'll just kind of be my little honey hole.
If you can get it for free, then if someone's willing to do it, then, why not? But, I think you also, people will respond for money on, as well. And you don't have to pay them a whole lot. And people would always say, you're paying that woman for photos? I'm like, yeah. And, it's their time is valuable, just like my time is valuable. And, for what I spend on these photos, I will make it back, God knows how much.
Right.
So it's a perfectly good investment, I think, for any type of photographer to go in and do that. And like I said, also it's practice, because there's a lot of people who want to start out doing this and they don't have anybody to practice on. And this is very difficult to do. And you just can't start taking money from people and not know what you're doing, because quickly you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble. So that avenue is a good way to do some practice work to make sure that you working on your chops and getting things done the way that people expect it to.
Exactly. I think I'm gonna try to do another. I don't know. I don't do a lot of. Even though the name is After Dark, I don't do a whole lot of After Dark.
After Dark, Boudoir After Dark.
Yeah. But I love to see some of the photos where you've got some candlelight, or right now I'm doing the Christmas light thing. That's actually the session that I've got this evening. So I'm pushing myself a little bit, just to learn my craft more, because I think that's definitely something that you can never stop doing.
Now, what do you think you're struggling with a little bit, like in posing, or what's something that you think you're trying to get a little bit better in as far as your photography part of it goes?
Just, the low lighting.
I don't do that.
I'm trying to push myself a little bit, because there is a group of a boudoir photographer that does a lot of low lighting.
Right.
And they're so super crisp. They're not grainy, and I'm just like, I want that look. I want to be able to. That
darker, sinister kind of and that's something. I'm a bright and shiny. I was talking with some people a week or 2 weeks ago, and I cannot do that to save my life. If someone comes in with those dark black pictures with just the outline, I'm like, I'm not your guy that probably takes a lot of practice.
I think that's something I'm pushing myself to right now. And the Christmas lights minis that I'm doing right now, the first ones that I did, when I'm looking at them in the studio as I'm shooting them, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so dark. They're so dark. I'm not going to be able to bring that back in Lightroom, But then when I got them and, got them loaded to the computer, and I looked and I was like, oh, wow, I could see a lot more than I thought, a lot more than I could see on the back of the camera. And
it looked better than you thought it would.
It did.
Well, that's always a good surprise.
Yes, very.
Have you been doing anything for Christmas? Have been some people coming in doing okay with any Christmas sessions? Have you had time for that?
I have. I've got a couple that I've got books and things that I'm finishing up to get ordered. And the Christmas minis was, honestly, it was just like a whim thing. But I had a lot of good response. Had a lot of people that I think felt like they could afford a little bit easier. So I've already decided, I'm going to do some Valentine's Day minis.
Same thing. Yep. Where did you promote that? Or how did you arrange, how many people did you try to schedule in one day?
Christmas? Well, because of my schedule, and because these are going to be more after sun starts going down, it's not like a one day of 10 people.
So you're scheduling them as you can fit them into your schedule. I got you. Shorter sessions when you can accommodate them.
Yep, and when they can do. Gotcha. Yep. So
that's what you have today. So that's the one that you're going to be doing for today. A little bit of candlelight in there and practicing some dark photos.
Yep.
Perfect.
Exactly. So and this is a return client. She's like,
oh, good.
She had told me she wanted to do another session, but then when she saw that I was putting the minis out and she saw the price and everything, she was like, I want to do that. So
what type of, who is your typical client now? I mean, other than someone at work, what would you describe as the person that's coming to see you?
Honestly, I've had a lot of people around my age. I mean, honestly, I've had some that are doing it for their future husband, the engaged, soon to be married. I've had, some of those, but a lot of them have been people around my age, people that I've went to high school with and their friends, or nurses. I love nurses, but some of their family. I just shot a sister of a nurse that I had shot previously.
So word of mouth
Yeah,
is a lot of that.
it.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's the best recommendation you can get is friends of friends spreading the word. That's a real strong way to gain.
Yeah, I just wish they would talk about it, to a broader group. Like I said, you kind of tell your 3 or 4 closest friends, and you'll show them your photos, but you don't go show everybody, hey, look what I did.
Yeah, and that network will expand, though. The more people you do, the more those smaller groups will be involved. So the reach, it spreads smaller, but, it spreads incrementally as you do more and more people in that manner. So that just is a function of time.
Well, and I definitely need to do a better job of growing, advertising-wise, looking at some different avenues to promote myself. I think I've just been a little hesitant just because of trying to work the balance thing, trying to figure out how to make it all work and not feel like I've let anybody down from either
and then
job.
Scheduling, you could always, and then the scheduling, people are usually except for Christmas, usually people, it's a little bit easier to schedule things. And, marketing and that's a whole other series of shows in and of itself. And it's just a function of money. The more money you spend, the more people are going to come back to you. But like anything else, you have to start small. And as you start getting returns on that will grow and grow. And you can allocate more and more money to spending to advertising, which will bring you more and more people. But learning how to target the people, your demographic, like on Facebook, is so granular. You can target anniversaries of women between the ages of 30 to 35. And in so far of a range, you can really lock in. And it's hard because I think a lot of people don't study it enough and they're throwing money away, or they may spend a bunch and then they don't get an immediate return, which it doesn't work in that fashion. And I think the one thing to keep in mind, especially with like Facebook or Google, that people see those ads, but I've had people say, 9 months ago, I remember that ad, but I wasn't ready till now.
Right.
Because my anniversary wasn't until the end of the year. So it's not always an immediate return on that. It's more of a long-term investment and a steady investment, and then you'll start to see some returns there. And then you just schedule them, if you have your 1 day a week that you can only do your sessions, you just pile them up, 2 people on 1 day a week and grow slowly from there. But the hard part, I think, is to coming to terms with how much money you have to spend to get that return, and then saying, okay, it's costing me $50 a client to get that, or $100 a client, and then sort of figuring that amount with what you can afford with what you're bringing in. But that's a whole nother ball of wax to get in there. But it takes some studying. And now, there are you can go on Facebook or on YouTube and see all these videos on how to teach yourself how to advertise on Facebook or how to advertise on Google. And there's people much smarter than me out there. And it's studying it a little bit and trying it out.
Yep.
And seeing how it works for you, because it can't hurt. Because what I always tell people, too, if you're sitting around waiting for people to find you, that's a recipe for failure.
Right.
And, the referrals are great, and that's a great way to build business. But as you see, that only goes so far. That if you want to keep growing, you got to reach outside that immediate circle and start bringing those some people in from that way. So
yeah, that's definitely been the struggle, is, trying to just get it out there. And I don't have a lot of expendable income for that right now with 2 kids in college.
Right.
So,
yes.
It's just a balancing act, but I enjoy it enough. I enjoy what I do in both areas enough to keep fighting for it,
Right. Yeah. And it sounds like you're really enjoying it.
Yeah. And
your photos are really nice, again, on your website. And what I want to give you a moment to do here today is just plug where people can find you, where they can take a look at your work. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit where they can find your Instagram or Facebook or website? So
my Instagram is at After Dark Boudoir, and I have my website is adboudoir.com. They didn't have the After Dark available, so that is...
Those bastards took your name.
I know, they did. And then my Facebook group is still private. it's still a private group, just because does seem like a little bit older clientele. So it's still private. It's a after dark boudoir private group. So yeah, look me up, find me,
Join
give
the
me
group.
some love.
Give her some business.
Yes, yeah, definitely, definitely. Give me some business.
Well, it was interesting to talk to you today. We've been on here about an hour. I know you got a busy day, and I don't want to keep you from your session. I don't want you mad at me. I don't want you yelling.
No, hey, if anybody should be mad, it's you, because it took me a bit to get on here.
It happens. Like I said, people are busy, but ultimately it all came together. So it was worth it, and it was nice to talk to you. And I love meeting people and talking to people and hearing about what's going on and what we do in different parts of the country, and everybody's on a different part of the learning curve. I learn things every week by talking to people, and it's sharing. We can all help each other get better and build our businesses and doing something that we really really enjoy doing. So that's really the ultimate goal of doing this, is trying to help each other out and to also help everybody else out who, like I always tell people, and I'll repeat my story, and I got a message on my Instagram, as now it's going back a couple months, from somebody, and I was just asking me a camera question. I'm not a big technical camera guy, but he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe someone like you actually answered me and answered my question." And there's people that's curious to know these things, that talk to somebody and hear about what it takes, and they think it's so easy, and it's not that easy. It's a lot of work that goes into it. So if we can help some people out and introduce some people, it's worth it, I think, in the end.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Welcome. You're welcome, and thanks for coming on. And then I think we need to follow up in a few months, and we'll talk again in the future.
That sounds great.
Okay. And I want to thank Angie for coming on After Dark Boudoir, and nice to meet you today.
Thank you so much. It was very nice to meet you. Hope you have a great weekend. That's right. It's
Thank
Friday.
you.
See, I start my shift one day and end it the next, so I'm a little...
That's all right. And I have my last Christmas session tomorrow, and then I am done. And I have 8,000 photo books. Well, not that many. A bunch of photo books. I'll be going crazy. I have one more. That's it. And then my stress is over for Christmas. So thanks a lot.
Enjoy it.